And now we have some shocking news today. Some NBA players and a coach are being arrested as part of a wide range of investigations into illegal sports betting. For more on this news, we're being joined now by NTD's Dave Martin. So Dave, good to see you. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Don. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well. So what are we looking at here? Can you break this down for us?
Yeah, it seems, the pair of investigations, this was illegal sports betting and rigged poker games, as you said. Now, both were allegedly backed by the Mafia, according to investigators. It's the latter here, rigged poker games that Portland Trailblazers current head coach Chauncey Billups was allegedly involved with. Now, authorities say it was a scheme to rig underground poker games backed by the Mafia. They said the scheme targeted victims who were lured to participate in rigged games with the chance to play alongside a celebrity. Now, this is where Billups comes in. Billups was allegedly one of those celebrities. Now, the games were then allegedly rigged using altered card shuffling machines. There was hidden cameras in poker chip trays, special sunglasses, even X-ray equipment built into the tables to read poker cards. I mean, I had no idea such things existed. But Billups, though, he's better known for his years as an NBA player, played with the Detroit Pistons for a number of years, won an NBA title with them. He's a very respected coach and player in the league.
So there were actually other people involved in this, and one person I want to focus on as well is, what about the charges against Terry Rozier, who is currently playing for the Miami Heat? What do they allege that he did?
Yeah, he's accused of the illegal sports betting part, specifically using private insider information. Now, they allege that Rozier and others had access to inside information that, only players and coaches would have, that would have affected, the outcome of a game or an individual's performance. And they exchanged that they exchanged that information for either a flat fee or a percentage of the profits. Now, in 2023, sportsbooks in several states flagged suspicious betting on Rozier's statistics on a single game, a prop bet it's called. Now, there was a surge of bets that came in on the under for his points, rebounds, and assists, so much so that they actually halted the betting on that. Then in the actual game, Rozier played just 10 minutes, which is not very long, left the game citing a foot injury. Now, the NBA looked into that matter, though. They found that no league rules were broken. It's unclear, though, if this is something that the investigators are looking into. Now, in all, there were 34 people arrested for these two schemes. A couple were charged in actually both schemes, the sports betting and rigged poker games.
Okay, so I'm not very a sports guy. If I ask a question that seems kind of obvious, I ask you to forgive me on that. But when they say insider information, what could that be referring to?
I think that could be a lot of things. It's a good question, though. I would probably say player availability would be the number one thing that, a player or coach could have access to that maybe the public wouldn't. And that could be, themselves being available or a fellow player or maybe being injured, I guess. That's one reason the league really forbids gambling on games within the league. You cannot do it at all. Let's actually listen here to what U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York, Joseph Nocella, said today about that.
The non-public information included when specific players would be sitting out future games or when they would pull themselves out early for purported injuries or illnesses. They relied on corrupt individuals, including Jones and Rozier. They also misused information obtained through long-standing friendships that they had with NBA players and coaches. And in at least one instance, they got their information by threatening a current player, Porter, because of his pre-existing gambling debts. Defendants used this non-public information to place hundreds of thousands of dollars in fraudulent bets, mostly in the form of prop bets on individual player performance. The bets were placed through online sports books and also in person at casinos. The defendants relied on a network of straw bettors to place the maximum amount of bets to increase their potential profits. Most of these bets succeeded, and the intended losses were in the millions of dollars.
Now, he mentioned a name there that was Porter. He was talking about Jonte Porter. Now, he's the one who apparently had pre-existing gambling debts. Now, in 2024, Porter was banned from the league for life for his role in a gambling scheme around individual player prop bets. These prop bets were very similar to that Rozier case I was talking about earlier, where it was a game that had heavy betting on the under for player statistics. And then Porter left that game early, ensuring that he wouldn't get over those numbers. Another name he mentioned there, Jones, that's former NBA player, current assistant coach Damon Jones. Jones was also arrested Thursday. He's one of three people allegedly involved in both cases. That's, the insider information about the NBA games and those rigged poker games there.
So these people, including the current coach, Billup, and the current player, Rozier, what would this mean for their careers now that they're charged with this?
Yeah, well, obviously, means bad things for their careers. I mean, I would expect the team is eventually going to come out and say that, they're suspended indefinitely pending the investigation, for one thing. Now, if it comes out, like with Porter, where they find out that they find on their own that he bet against the league, it's undoubtedly a lifetime ban. I mean, that's just across all sports. If you bet against your own team, then the fans are going to think, every game is rigged. These aren't real outcomes. This is fake stuff going on here. You'd be done for life. If it's for this, where it's, in trouble with the FBI for something, it's certainly going to be a bad look for them, but it wouldn't be like a lifetime ban, I wouldn't think. But it's certainly nothing good is going to come from this. Now, right now, like you said, Rozier, he's in a contract that he plays for the Miami Heat. The guy is 30 years old. He's a very good player. I'll be very interested to see what the NBA does. I mean, previously, they've tried to, kind of separate themselves from sports betting. But in recent years, with laws being lax, they've actually gotten a lot more cozier. So it'll be interesting to see the NBA's reaction to this.
Well, okay. Keep us updated on the situation as more things develop, and looking forward to talking to you again. Thank you.
I will, Dylan. Thank you very much.
Thanks. 3 NBA stars have been arrested in illegal gambling schemes. The Justice Department says the fraud was historic in scale. Here's the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York.
The first indictment involves 6 defendants who are alleged to have participated in one of the most brazen sports corruption schemes since online sports betting became widely legalized in the United States. This scheme is an insider sports betting conspiracy that exploited confidential information about National Basketball Association athletes and teams. The second indictment involves 31 defendants alleged to have participated in a nationwide scheme to rig illegal poker games. These defendants, which include former professional athletes, used high-tech cheating technology to steal millions of dollars from victims in underground poker games that were secretly fixed.
In the first case, former NBA player and coach Damon Jones and Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier were arrested and indicted for allegedly betting on insider information about NBA athletes and teams. The alleged information included when specific players would be sitting out future games or when they would pull themselves out early for purported injuries or illnesses. In the second case, Jones and Portland Trail Blazers head coach Chauncey Billups were arrested and indicted on accusations of rigging poker games involving cheating devices. The DOJ says victims were often lured into these games by the chance to play alongside former professional athletes, including Jones and Billups. The Justice Department said the case also involved major Italian-American mafia families in New York City. Take a listen. The FBI announced charges in an alleged sports gambling scheme. Joining us to discuss is Gerard Filitti, Senior Counsel at the Lawfare Project. So, Gerard, good afternoon. Could you describe for us the scale and complexity of this? Because it involves several high-profile figures across the NBA and spans years of investigation and across many states.
That's right. This is a very interesting case that stems out of two different investigations by the Justice Department, both coinciding with some people who are apparently basketball players or associated with the NBA. This involved gambling and it involved betting on sports. Allegations are that members of the NBA, or a coach in this case, or people affiliated with the game, gave inside information that was used in illegal betting, meaning that they gave information on things like player lineup or who would be sitting a game out, things that would give bettors a comparative advantage, and that this was used to commit wire fraud, that this was a conspiracy to commit money laundering, these are the main charges against the basketball players. And this is one of the two cases. The other one involves a tie-in with crime families in New York, the Mafia, and illegal gambling that was taking place there.
Could you talk to us about the potential impacts or ripple effects this may have on the NBA?
This potentially has a huge ripple effect on the NBA. It gives rise to questions about the integrity of some of its players and the extent to which information about these games have been leaked, not just by the people who are indicted in this case, but potentially by other people associated with the NBA. This may very well be a much larger scale issue of inside knowledge that's being released that may benefit competitors or may benefit bettors. So this is really a black mark in terms of the integrity of the NBA. And they will have a lot of investigating and cleaning house to do internally.
And what about how serious these charges are? What could the suspects be facing?
A lot of what they can be facing is jail time, and not insubstantial jail time. We're talking about felonies that carry years of incarceration. The government is also explicitly looking at asset forfeiture, meaning that they can be on the hook for millions of dollars in fines and restitution in terms of what money was made in these gambling rings. So there is both the prospect of jail time, but also of financial penalties that are very significant.
So based on the announcement earlier today, apparently money laundering was part of it as well. Can you talk to us about how do prosecutors trace illegal gambling profits that are laundered?
Well, this is a good old-fashioned investigation like we've seen classically coming out of Mafia investigations. What they're looking at are wire transfers, wire communications, bank deposits. They're looking to see who made money on these games, these sports games, or at the casino, at the gambling table for the Mafia-controlled games. And they're looking to see what happened to that money. So it's a thorough, old-fashioned, and lengthy investigation following the trail of money from the source into how it was deposited or laundered. And oftentimes the laundering is merely the fact that the money was not disclosed, that there was no disclosure to the IRS, for example, or that it was illegally declared to be some other kind of earning and not earnings off of gamblings or off of selling inside information. So this was a meticulous investigation following the money and the chain of communications that all of these people were allegedly involved in.
So Gerard, I was talking about this topic with our in-house sports expert, and I'm wondering if you can speak to this as well, because both an active player and an active NBA head coach were arrested. So I'm wondering, how deep does this issue run inside the NBA?
Well, that's really the million-dollar question, and I'm sure that the NBA has already started its own investigation with its own investigators and legal team to try to suss out exactly what the damage is, whether there are other teams and other players that are involved. This is, of course, a very serious allegation. There are contract provisions within the NBA that prohibit this type of behavior. So we're not just looking at criminal penalties that the government might impose when these people, or if these people rather, are convicted at trial, but they can be sued by the NBA. The NBA can discipline them. They can be terminated. There can be consequences for the actions that they took, which violates the terms of their contracts. So the NBA will be taking a close look, not just at what this player and this coach did, but at what other teams are doing as well to make sure that the game's integrity is restored.
So another point here, Gerard, and you already know this, there were many members of the New York's Mafia families also indicted together in this single case, right? Can you talk to us about the significance here?
Well, there are actually two separate cases, but this is stemming from the same investigations, and there's crossover in some of the people involved. The case involving the basketball players is a little bit separate than the one that involves some basketball players and the mob. So the case involving the Mafia gambling involved poker games that were being illegally conducted under the auspices of 4 or 5 of the crime families in New York. The Gambino, Lucchesi, Bonanno, and Genovese crime families were conducting poker games in the Hamptons, New York City, Miami, and Las Vegas. And they were essentially cheating. They were using technology and other means to rig the game, and then also extorting players through threats and robbing them of their money when they wouldn't pay up. So this is old-fashioned mafia action, basically to controlling illegal gambling operations. We've seen prosecutions like this before. What's different here is that we do have some basket people related to the NBA basketball player who was involved in this as well.
So, some of us were actually surprised that the mob was involved in this morning's announcement. Can you talk to us about how does modern organized crime differ from what we've seen historically?
Modern organized crime has gotten much more sophisticated in the way they move money. It's gotten much more sophisticated in the things that it engages in. It launders money more efficiently through businesses. And in many ways, it has moved on from some of its traditional criminal practices to higher-end white-collar crimes, to controlling and extorting businesses, through leveraging financial trades as well. But at its root, Cosa Nostra, the mafia, still engages in the same type of illegal gambling, control of trade, control of extortion, robbery that it always has. This is why I'm saying that this is very much an old-fashioned type of case where the mafia is holding poker games and it's robbing its customers by cheating them as well. This is classic mafia behavior, if you will, that we've seen for many, many years.
All right, Gerard, just one final question. Can you tell us what is the message that is being sent today in the announcement?
The message that's being sent are twofold. One is that no one is above the law, that even if you are a basketball player or a coach, you will be investigated for your conduct, and if it is found to be illegal, you will be prosecuted. So even if you're a sports hero, that does not make you immune from following the law. The other message is that the FBI is very capable of continuing to put pressure on organized crime, including the Mafia in New York City, on its activities, and that they need to be looking over their shoulder if they continue engaging in these illegal acts, because the FBI will catch them and they will be brought to justice.
Okay, Gerard, good to speak with you. Thank you for giving us your time today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And New York City mayoral candidates sparred for the second time last night, with all 3 contenders trading jabs in their final pitches to voters. NTD's Arlene Richards was there and now shares some of the takeaways.
It was a night of last impression on Wednesday evening as candidates for New York City mayor made their final pitches to New Yorkers in their second debate before early voting. All 3 contenders made their enthusiastic bids before a crowded auditorium of voters who often cheered and clapped. Wednesday's debate came as Republican candidate Curtis Sliwa faces a growing number of calls to drop out of the race. He vowed to stay in and allow New Yorkers to decide. Sliwa made enthusiastic and sometimes humorous jabs at his opponents in a last push to get voters on his side.
It's us versus them. It's us versus the insiders and the billionaires. It's us versus Cuomo. It's us versus Zorhan. Andrew, you didn't leave. You fled from being impeached by the Democrats in the state legislature.
Meanwhile, top contenders Andrew Cuomo and Zohran Mamdani exchanged heated jabs in their final pleas to New Yorkers.
My critiques of the politics of the past is right here on the stage. You can see in Andrew Cuomo someone who had 10 years to deliver on so much of what he's spoken about.
You have never had a job. You've never accomplished anything. There's no reason to believe you have any merit or qualification for 8.5 million lives.
The first question posed to candidates focused on the federal raid in New York City's Chinatown neighborhood on Tuesday that led to the arrest of 9 street vendors. All 3 candidates agreed that the federal government shouldn't get involved in local matters, but they had slightly different views on how the mayor should handle it.
I've had a lot of dealings with President Trump, and there's only one way to deal with him. He puts his finger in your chest, and you have to put your finger right back in his chest.
Mamdani said the city shouldn't be collaborating with the federal government like the current mayor does.
What we need to do is actually pass the street vending reform bills that have been in the city council, some of which that this mayor has actually overridden.
Sliwa said there's no communication between local authorities and the feds.
But we can't tolerate citizens attacking our federal law enforcement forces in the street because then that will just lead to anarchy.
At a press conference following the debate, Sliwa said the NYPD didn't show up because they were hiding behind the sanctuary city law. According to Homeland Security, those arrested were illegal immigrants from West Africa. Moderators covered a number of general topics such as rising housing costs and policing. There also were questions designed for each candidate. For example, they said Mamdani criticizes others but avoids answering questions. Cuomo is viewed as unethical, and Sliwa is a character. Most recent polls show Mamdani is still leading the pack, with Sliwa a distant third. As New Yorkers head to the polls on Saturday for early voting, they will have to make some tough decisions between an embattled former governor, a character icon of the city, and a self-described Democratic socialist. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
And for more takeaways from yesterday's debate, joining us is Matt Klink, Republican strategist and political analyst, and we have Robin Byro, Democratic strategist and former Obama regional campaign director. So good afternoon to you both. Matt, if you could start us off here, what stood out to you the most in last night's debate?
I think the fact that nothing happened in last night's debate that upset the apple cart in terms of the current status quo in the race. Mamdani is still running like he's ahead. Cuomo is doing everything he can. It almost looks like an act of desperation to try to create that moment that will go viral. And sadly, the more sound that Mr. Sliwa sounds, the worse he hurts Mario Cuomo and makes the inevitability of a Mamdani mayoralty a likelihood. So again, with 2 weeks left, it's Mamdani as a front runner. And unless he does himself harm, he's going to win.
So Robin, what do you think here? How were the candidates' performances?
Honestly, I thought they did a respectable job. I don't think that any one of them hurt themselves last night necessarily, but I don't think many of them moved the needle except for Sliwa. I mean, he really did come across as someone that was genuine, likable, quite the character, as you said in the lead to the segment. If you're voting just on character, on entertainment value, he provided it last night. I will say, I've run for mayor of a pretty large city here, not anything like New York, but, here in Atlanta, Georgia. So a lot can change in the final 2 weeks, as Matt just said. I don't expect for, unless they do themselves harm, it's going to be Mamdani. But still, a lot can change. They've been leaking photos right now of Mamdani with some rather unsavory characters. And if more of that happens, it could cause harm.
So Matt, I was talking about this debate with some of my colleagues here at the office. Some think that Mamdani actually did worse and Cuomo did better. Can I get your view on this? How do you view the performance of each candidate compared to the last debate?
Well, look, worse and better is a very subjective classification. When you're looking at these things, you want to look at momentum. And while I think some Democratic voters have come home to vote with former Governor Cuomo, I think unfortunately it's too little, too late. The social media activity for Mamdani has been consistent and dwarfs that of Cuomo. There's a buzz about his candidacy from younger voters. There's excitement there. And I think that, Cuomo is swinging for the fences, trying to hit a home run. And right now, Mamdani is just sitting. He just needs to make contact with the ball and put it in play because he's in front. And as each day that goes by, that front runner gets stronger and stronger. And Mr. Cuomo is not, he should have been more aggressive 3 months ago when it would have moved people, not in the last 2 weeks.
So Robin, I see you nodding there. Do you have a response to that?
Yes, there were some zingers last night also. I want to point out some of those. I think actually Mamdani did himself harm when he specifically did not take a position on the ballot measures. You heard the audience groan. You never want to have that happen. And to his credit, Sliwa said, Zoran, your resume could fit on a cocktail napkin, and Andrew, your failures could fill a New York public school library. I mean, ridiculous. And they also claimed that Mamdani has never even had a real job. I mean, it highlights the fact that he's 34 years old. They're trying, these older gentlemen are both trying to paint him as someone inexperienced for the job, Don.
So actually we have some breaking news here. It appears that the current mayor, Eric Adams, has just endorsed Andrew Cuomo. That's very interesting. Matt, maybe we can get a reaction from you. Do you think this changes the trajectory?
It helps, but I don't think it helps enough. I mean, I think that if you look at where Mayor Adams' votes were going, they're certainly not going to go to Mamdani. They'll probably go more toward Cuomo. But again, it's not enough to put him over the top. And we know that Curtis Sliwa is not going to get out. And his votes appear to be pretty rock solid. There aren't a lot of Republicans in New York City, but those that are, they're going to stick with their guy. And I think that will come directly out of voters that would more likely than not go to Governor Cuomo.
So Robin, can I get a reaction from you as well on this?
Please.
Robin, yeah.
I'm ready I'm ready here. I want to point out the fact that both Sliwa and Mamdani have already addressed this prior to the endorsement. They said that they would never accept an Adams endorsement. So Adams was kind of forced. The only candidate that he was left and able to endorse was Cuomo. So I really don't think it makes that much of a difference, Don.
All right. So I guess, Matt, you would agree that at this point, things are basically baked into the cake.
Barring that, we always talk about an October surprise. Or as Robin, you have the Frankenstein moment, the statue, the little mannequin you have behind you.
Yes.
Yeah, unless something happens that radically changes the trajectory of this race, it's going to be Mamdani, and it's going to be Mamdani pretty comfortably.
All right, so I wanted to get your guys' on something else too, but Robin, I wanted to point out that Frankenstein figure as well, maybe at the end. But since Matt brought it up, I think it looks pretty good as well. It's pretty impressive. So yeah,
thank you. I've got 2 teenage boys, so we're having a lot of fun over here.
Great. So the other topic I wanted to get your guys' comments on were the California's redistricting efforts. So Robin, how do you assess Proposition 50? What is your angle on that?
I'm always eager to fight on redistricting, and we have that happen a lot here. That's why I ran for state senate last year, was because of redistricting. I would argue that the lines look gerrymandered there in California. That's never really a good thing. It's especially not a good thing for Democrats usually, but in this case it is, Don.
So Matt, what do you think here? California, as you know, uses an independent citizens redistricting commission to draw congressional maps. How do you expect voters to respond to Prop 50, which would temporarily override that commission?
Yeah, a couple of observations, because I'm very familiar with this initiative. The government in California has a temporary, doesn't mean temporary. We've had a temporary sales tax increase on the books since 2012 that miraculously keeps on getting extended every 4 years until it runs out. Look, Gavin Newsom has done an excellent job of nationalizing this campaign. Talking about fighting Donald Trump. He's had some very effective advertisements. We've had a very small voter turnout, 3.4 million ballots returned out of a total of 19.6 million in the state. And the majority, 51% of them, have been Democratic ballot returns. So that bodes well for the Democrats. I will say, though, that they say, oh, it's just 4 seats. you can't just redraw 4 congressional districts. It affects congressional districts up and down the state. It probably will yield a net of about 7 or 8 seats for Democrats and really divides some communities up, like between 3 and 4 congressional districts. It's going to create some huge problems. But right now the Democrats have the momentum and the money in their favor. So I mean, it's looking good for the yes on Prop 50 folks.
So, Robin, I think some voters, they just want to see upholding a redistricting process without politics. And, some are saying that California's redistricting is purely a strategy to counteract Republican redistricting efforts. What do you say to that?
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely a strategy to combat Republican redistricting efforts that are happening right now in Texas specifically. But I want to point out that just 7 hours ago, former President Obama said that Proposition 50 is absolutely essential to preserve democracy because of Republican redistricting. So that's going to have some weight, Don.
Okay, Matt, maybe just final comments here. Does putting this measure before voters resolve your concerns? Because, at the end of the day, it is Californians who are making the decision.
No, I mean, look, we voted overwhelmingly twice to have an independent citizens redistricting commission conduct our redistricting. And I will remind you that we have a 52-member congressional delegation. The Democrats already control 43 seats. And in the long run, yes, this allegedly is a response to Texas, but Democratic states are far more heavily gerrymandered than Republican states. And in the long run, if the Republicans do what California has done, which can be done without a ballot measure, the Democrats will lose up to 19 seats nationwide. So it's a short-sighted strategy that the Democrats will ultimately lose. And just wait until that pesky 2030 census, when the population moves are going to really pull congressional seats away from blue states and give them to red states. The northern block of those states that always are determinative, it won't even matter. The Democrats could sweep and the Republicans will still win. So the Democrats have some long-term problems, and this is short-sighted by Gavin Newsom and by the Democrats.
Well, all right, let's leave the discussion here. And Robin, I like the jack-o'-lanterns as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Very spooky, Robin. Good job.
I love it.
All right.